grab your teas and coffees and come gather in close. We're going to get our program started for the morning. Feel free to bring your snacks, your lollies, your cupcakes. There's a few seats up here. If those of you who are maybe less mobile would like to grab a seat, otherwise just come and stand around somewhere that you can hear. That'd be wonderful if you can gather in. So lovely to see everyone's fresh faces on this brisk spring morning. Special welcome to Molly, the dog, who's here for the second time this weekend. Gorgeous dog. Gathering. Make sure you're nice and close so that you can hear. This morning we have the privilege of welcoming Deborah Dicembre to the stage this morning to share from her heart, her experience, her incredible wealth of knowledge as an artist, both a jazz musician and a visual artist. I'm sure if you've been here over the weekend, you will have seen some of her incredible body of work entitled Messiah that she originally exhibited across the road at Fern Street Gallery, and we're so privileged to have some of the work here over the weekend. And Deborah has become a wonderful friend of mine and an inspiration. Her creative process is inspiring and divinely inspired, I would say. And so Deborah's going to come and share with us about some of her story, her art practice. And I just want to encourage everyone as you're hearing Deborah speak, if there's any questions that come to mind, curiosity, just hold those thoughts in your mind, because at the end of her talk, Deb will give everyone an opportunity to ask questions. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Deborah Dicembre to the stage.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Emily. Well, it's certainly an honour to be here at the Creator's Mark Art Prize. My name is Deborah Dicembre and I am a creative artist, and I've been a creative artist for over 30 years now, mostly as a jazz musician. That is my number one gig, or used to be my number one gig, until painting took over. Now, I've always been drawing and painting on the side, but it was like a companion creative pursuit to my music. My father was a jazz musician and he was also an artist. And one day, a big truck of art materials pulled up to my house. And it was possibly the most frightening thing that had ever happened, because in my heart, I had always wanted to paint, but I didn't think I was as good as him, or I didn't think I was good enough to paint. Now, I know that sounds strange, because isn't painting just making your authentic mark on the canvas? That's what it is. But there's this big mystery involved. Will I be as good as that person? What will I think? What if I make the mark on the canvas and I don't like it? What does that say about me? And I found that in the same way that we might dance or write or do other creative pursuits, we go through the process of acceptance, of self-acceptance. And so when I began this body of work, Messiah, I'll speak a little bit about that. It'll get my nerves away. The Messiah series is 7 paintings, each 1 meter square, and it's 1 color per canvas. That is the challenge of this particular series. And because I'll tell you, it was 2020 and the world had shut down from COVID. And I had never been to university or art school, so I had all these art materials and I wasn't really sure where to start. So I thought I'd put myself through a self-styled art school. So I got online and I researched art and art classes and how I would go about this. As you do, you Google things. And I found some wonderful teachers online teaching abstract expressionism. And I learnt that I too could make this mark, and they all had these big rolls of canvas and they had all this timber around. I thought, oh, I'll do that too. I'll buy a roll of canvas and So I did buy a roll of canvas, and it came to the door, and it was 2.5 meters tall and 30 meters long. And it was massive. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? Well, what I had done was begun this journey of making my authentic mark. I bought the timber, all these frames that you see, I stretched by hand, made the frames, stretched the canvas over the timber, and began to paint. And this painting you see down here is called Ruach. This was the first painting of the series. And Ruach, I actually had it made into a scarf. Some people over there who may not be able to see that painting, I'll make this scarf appear. Just like that. Thank you, Emily. This is Ruach. Now the name means breath of life or breath of God. And it was the first painting. And I actually didn't know that I was going to go beyond this painting regards this series. But I can say that this painting breathed life into me as a painter. I decided I was going to go public with my art. And that was a big step. You look at people and you think, oh, that's a confident person. But everybody's tender. Every single person is tender. And putting yourself out there as an artist or a musician or a writer or whatever it is, it takes a lot of courage. And by the time this painting came to be, it gave me the courage, okay, I can do this. I can start doing some more paintings. And in my morning meditation time, I began to pray and meditate as I do. And I'll be straight up front with you. I practice a Jesus-based faith. I'm a spiritual person. I don't go to church. And I don't necessarily subscribe to organized religion, although I do think it has its place in society. Not particularly for me at this time, but I practice a Jesus-based faith. And if I was going to make art, I was going to make art that meant something to me. I did not want to make art for any other reason than that it was important to me. And I didn't really care if it was important to anybody else. Because I'd spent 30 years making all sorts of art that maybe people liked or maybe they didn't. But it was very important to me at this age and stage of life to make something that meant something to me. So I began this process of prayer and meditation and made this painting Ruach. And I came across this book called The Artist's Way. Some of you may have heard of it. And I'm going to read to you a few of the affirmations from this book that really shaped my thinking as I went about making the 7 paintings and naming them and what they meant. The basic principles here. Creativity is the natural order of life. Life is energy, pure creative energy. There is an underlying, indwelling creative force infusing all of life, including ourselves. When we open ourselves to our creativity, we open ourselves to the Creator's creativity within us and our lives. We are ourselves creations, and we, in turn, are meant to continue creativity by being creative ourselves. Creativity is God's gift to us. Using our creativity is our gift back to God. And this book was an amazing beacon of light or pathway for me to find my authentic mark as an artist. So the 7 paintings came to me in my mind, and I'll say this: art is in here long before it gets on the canvas. If you're a writer, the writing is in here long before it hits the page. If you're a musician, the music is in here and in your heart long before it hits the page. And each person is a unique expression of the Creator. Now, I don't know what all you all believe, but I'm just going to tell you from my experience and my point of view that every single person has unique DNA. Unique. You are a one-off handmade item with the breath of God, Ruach, in you, breathing life into you. And so it's as if every single person is a unique mark of the Creator, a unique Creator's mark. Now, angels and demons don't make creative art. Horses, cows, fish and birds don't make creative art. Trees don't make creative art. Human beings are the only creature on the planet that makes a creative mark. And in doing that, You are, in my mind, in doing that, you are divine. You are expressing your divinity, making your authentic, creative mark. Now, everybody has their own idea of who and what God is. That's because you've been given free will. And so most people can accept that there is a God outside of themselves, that if there's a God, they're not it. And so I can unequivocally say that I am not God. But I understand there's a power higher than me. I can call the higher power. So, in my prayer and meditation, 7 paintings came to mind. 7 colours, 7 paintings, 7 names. Each painting had a name and a subtitle. And the names are in Greek, Hebrew, and English. And you can see we have some of the paintings here. This is deep. It's about the mystery of mathematics. This painting here is called Shepherd. It's about abundance and being taken care of. This painting is called Thunomy. In Greek, that means power. It's about the power of a king. Thunomy is different from exousia. There's 2 words in Greek that mean power. One is exousia, which means like excitement, enthusiasm, and the other, thunomy, means power that is bestowed upon you. That's the essence of the word, like a magistrate or a policeman, power that is bestowed. And so the power of the king is bestowed upon that king. That's what this painting is about, power. So 7 paintings, all abstract expressionism, all with a different meaning, and all a different expression of abstract expressionism. You'll see this painting over here is very geometric. The painting, which was white on white, Revelation, was very the opposite of geometric, gestural marks. It was in white, and there was scratched into it meaning and words, and there was graphite and oil paint and raw canvas. I have pictures of that. You also see there's a QR code if you want to see more about the Messiah series. There's a QR code. But really what I wanted to say about this particular series is that the power of seeing the 7 paintings in the Fern Street Gallery was an absolute, it was a pinch me moment for me. Here I was, my first professional exhibit with the 7 paintings. I'd made my mark, and as far as I was concerned, the day those paintings hung on the wall, I was a success. That for me was, I felt like I had reached a point in my authenticity as an artist that, how can I say, I had wrestled with myself as a person. I had wrestled with the art, with the canvas, with the paint, with all the materials, and had birthed this body of work. It took me 2 years, and it cost 1 year's wage. It was not a small process, it was a long process. And I felt that it was a gift. It was an act of creative worship, if you will. And as I said, I practice a Jesus-based faith. And if you know what an alabaster jar is, it was a jar that was cracked open and poured over Jesus' feet and his head for burial. It cost 1 year's wages. And as gifts often do, it caused a bit of trouble. There were people who were upset with the woman who poured this oil over his head and feet. And depending on how you read the story, it was either 2 days or 6 days before he went to the cross. So when he was flayed and hung on that cross, he could have still smelt that ointment, as far as I'm concerned. He probably could have. It has a very pungent smell. If you've ever poured oil over your head and you didn't have shampoo to get it out, it'd be there for quite a while. So it was a fragrance, this alabaster jar, preparing him for burial. And for me, Messiah is my alabaster jar, a fragrance, preparing him not for burial, but for eternity. So that is the Messiah series. There are scarves and prints that I had made with this exhibit. You're welcome to purchase any of these things, or come and look at them, or ask me questions, and come and see the paintings on stage. Thank you.
Wonderful. Absolutely inspiring. Thank you, Deborah. Now, I said before, we're going to have a little moment now where we can take some questions. If anyone has a question, just raise your hand and I'll come and take your question. My first question, I'm going to start the ball rolling because sometimes we're nervous. I've been to Deb's 2 exhibitions, both at Fern Street, one being Messiah and the other one called Masterpiece. Both times I walked into the gallery and cried, and I have been to a lot of exhibitions and have never had such an emotional response. Just wondering if you could talk a little bit about your experience of people's reactions and that, what is that feeling? Can you talk a little bit about what that emotional, physical response is?
That visceral response. It was interesting because everybody responds differently to colour. You know, colour has a deep effect on people, and truly people are very attracted to this blue painting here called Ruach. I found that also this painting here, which is difficult to see in that printed fashion, Unconditional Love, The Life is in the Blood, there were 2 kinds of people who had a visceral expression to that painting. One were people who'd gone to war. The painting is called Unconditional Love, The Life is in the Blood. If you read the description, any creature that is blood-driven, once you bleed out, that's it, no more life. The life is in the blood. And there's a reason we're told not to drink blood, because the life is in the blood. So soldiers would come and look at this painting and see no greater love has a man than he lays down his life for his friends. And these people had watched their own friends bleed out on the battlefield, and there were tears. The other group were people who practice sacrifice, who occult practitioners, who know that there has to be the spilling of blood in order for a sacrifice to be powerful. And whether it's human blood or chicken blood or whatever it is you're going to sacrifice, something has to die in order for something else to be born. And so human sacrifice that's been practiced for millennia on this planet still goes on today, whether it's on the battlefield or in some dark corner. These are things that we don't talk about, but it is going on. And so the spilling of human blood, that's the highest sacrifice that you can make as a human being, is that you bleed out. Yeah.
Anyone else with a question before Deb finishes up? Deborah?
Come on, be brave.
Thanks so much for sharing, Deborah. I'm interested in the process itself when you're applying paint to the canvas. What's going on for you in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit as you're actually applying this?
Okay.
Do you have a sense of direction in those moments from God or from the Holy Spirit? What's happening for you in that moment?
2 things happen. Before you start a painting, it's in your mind. In your mind you have an idea of what's going to happen. But if you know paint is disobedient. Paint will do what paint wants to do. Water is also disobedient. It will do what it's going to do. So you have an idea and you begin the painting. Apart from this very geometrical one that I, with holy fear, would take the tape off, because all the dimensions on that painting, being about mathematics and the mystery of mathematics and the Fibonacci numbers and singularity, if you know anything about quantum mathematics, and non-locality, that's what that painting is about. All the other paintings were in the moment. I had an idea, I would begin to paint, I'd leave it, I'd get as far as I could, and I'd think, that's great. I'd go to bed, I'd wake up the next day and I'd think, that's horrible. And I'd get back to it and I'd paint again, and then I'd leave and I'd think, no, that painting's not going to work, I'm going to have to start that again. Go to bed, get up the next day. That's fantastic, I love this painting. It's so subjective. The artist within themselves, when you get up the next day, the painting has changed. Because as paint dries, it shifts and changes. It's not the same painting that you were looking at before you went to bed, nor are you the same person. So each of these paintings, particularly this painting, to paint power. Now, the interesting thing is, as an expressionist, I'm not painting a tree, I'm not painting a flower or a house or a person. So how do you paint power? How do you paint abundance? How do you paint mathematics without painting numbers? How do you paint power without painting a muscle or a kin or something that you consider powerful, electricity? How do you paint abundance without painting a field? How do you paint the breath of God? How do you paint that? These are non-bodied concepts. And so in a sense, you launch yourself at the canvas with a brush or a stick or a silicone wedge in your hand. You've got the mediums. All these paintings are made of acrylic ink, acrylic paint, watercolor ink, graphite, oil paint. That was on the painting Revelation, which I can't tell you how much I wish that painting was here. It was my favourite painting. It was the second painting sold in the exhibit, and it was the most frightening painting to make because I so deeply wanted it to be edgy and cool and hip and good. And I wrestled with that thing. I wrestled and wrestled with that thing until I got to a point where I could exhale and said, I have accomplished what I set out to do on this painting. And it was very similar to this painting. Started out in the backyard with big buckets of purple paint splashing about. And then I got some deeper hues in here. And then I realized that a painting is interesting because of contrast. So you can see that there's random marks and then there's square marks. You can see that there's pale and there's deep. In a painting you might have dark colours, light colours, straight lines, curly lines. I always photograph my paintings and then move it to black and white so I can check out the contrast, because if there's not enough contrast in a painting, it's very kind of samey and doesn't have any interest. A painting has to have contrast in it in order to draw your eye over here or draw your eye over there. And so this painting, I'd gone as far as I could and still it wasn't giving me what I wanted. The painting's got to give me something. It has to hit me. If it doesn't hit me, it's not going to hit you. And this is the thing. If you're an artist, you are the only source of give a damn that's going to be in your work. So make sure it means something to you. So here I am painting this painting. I need it to hit. I need it to hit me. I got to a point, wasn't happening. Grabbed a can of spray paint, and that was it. A very courageous move, because the spray paint at that point was either going to ruin that painting or make it. And you're on that edge. Let me tell you, as an artist, as a painter, you are on that edge all the time with that work. Pushing it forward, pushing, wrestling with the painting, wrestling with the medium, resting, standing back, letting it dry. So I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, that's awesome. Any other questions for Deborah? I love that concept of the wrestling and the resting and that creative process. I love that. That really speaks to me of the rhythms of grace. Thank you again. Can we put our hands together once again for Deborah? Thank you. Thank you so much. That was just amazing. We are going to hear a song now from Sarah and Frankie, and then Jason Kent will present the People's Choice Award and share some words around the creative process, art and spirituality. So thank you, ladies.